Hi, everybody. I'm PJ Kwong, sometimes known as @Skating PJ, and I'm delighted that you're joining me for another of the Skate Ontario Town Halls. We have got lots of ground to cover today, and first I'm going to introduce our Executive Director, Lisa Alexander. Lisa, thank you for joining me.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, PJ. I think we've been waiting to get some information for a long time, so
we really have indeed. So let's talk a little bit about, what do you want to talk about today?
Should we talk about stage 1, PJ? Reopening Ontario?
It's now 12 hours old.
Oh, yes. And, and as you know, we've been talking for months about how much we were looking forward to getting to the point where we're actually getting into reopening rather than just talking about closing. So we're very excited about that. I know that it's been very difficult waiting to get information. On our end, it's been very difficult to get information. Often with these announcements, we receive the regulations within a day or two. We usually have, update calls with the minister, and any information has been very slow in coming. And we just received the regulations. Were just published a couple of days ago. So, that's why, with the support of our whole community, we've worked so hard this whole time to really stick together, to really do what's safe, to really meet guidelines. And so, that's what we continue to try and do.
It's so interesting when you talk about information, because the information has been all over the place. Understandably, this is not casting aspersions in any way, but people have been trying to figure out exactly what to do. And for those of you who've already joined us, feel free to drop in comments and questions. I'll get to as many of them as we can. We'll have a bit of a Q&A after we've sort of done all of our presentation. And I am delighted that it's not just you and me together today, Lisa. We actually have a friend joining us. I know. That is the manager for club program, Sharon Mackey. Sharon, thank you for joining me.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Well, this is just great news, because Sharon, of course, is the expert and the touch person to do with things that are going on at the club level. And we're going to get a chance to talk about day camps. I know it's like a 4-letter word. I'm kidding. It's not really. I counted them all. But Lisa, let's talk a little bit about where we're at today.
Yeah. So, as I mentioned, we've finally received the new guidelines for stage 1. And that is under, Ontario Regulations 8220 for anybody who wants to look that up. And basically what it says is that there are 3 ways that activity can happen, that could potentially happen right now, that would involve our members. So, first, and probably the easiest to understand, although I understand still frustrating for lots of people, is the Olympic exemption for training. That is unchanged. I appreciate that is frustrating. I can assure people we're still working on that one, but the good news is it's still there. The Olympic exemption for those select athletes. The second one is there is now guidelines for running day camps, for eligible day camp programs. Where we've had confusion and where the regulations are so confusing because they go in a circle and start to point at each other is there is not an allowance for normal sport training, but there are guidelines for day camps. And in lots of cases, our members have a long history of running day camps that include skating. So that is probably the newest and sadly most confusing information. And the other piece, of course, that is also very important is there is outdoor training allowed now. So people are able to do more stuff under those guidelines if they do some programs with athletes outside in a group now.
So I have a question, and that is to do with, you get these regulations, and as you said, you don't have all of the information. So do you have a team behind you that is helping you figure things out as best you can?
Yeah, we really do. And everybody, it's like a line of dominoes when this stuff comes up, right? So we have to interpret this legislation. Usually stop number 1 is discussion with our lawyer. And we're very lucky. We have a great guy who helps and supports us. because these regulations are more complicated than they appear, right? Because you can't ever just read a single line, because this line is affected by that line is affected by this document over here is related to this document over here. So we really rely on his advice to help us sort through that. And then the other place we have to go is, of course, to check on insurance coverage. I know that's important. That's not an exciting topic, but we always have to go check. And and then from there it just spills out, like, to our member clubs, to their local municipalities, to local public health units. And so it's so many different people who are really trying to do a good job and do what's best and safest for everybody. But sometimes it takes a while to dance through all of that stuff.
Imagine dance, choreography, figure skating, they all go together, right?
Yeah.
Sharon, Lisa brought up day camps. I know that as the manager of club programs, you would have some insight into this. So let's start with you. Can you talk to me a little bit about what day camps mean for Skate Ontario?
Absolutely. I think that the first thing to know is what Lisa had mentioned is that there's a couple documents that you're going to refer to for day camps. The first being the day camp document that comes right from the government. That will be your first piece that you will look at and will honestly supersede most of the other things that we've posted in the past. We have created another RTP that is just for day camps. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's going to go out this afternoon. I see nodding. Excellent. So we will make sure that comes out. What I'll do is I'll highlight, for the most part, it's very similar to our past RTP. Most of it refers to the day camp document, but we have a couple things in there that are a little bit new that I'll go over and highlight now. First off, the big one is vaccinations. We get questions about that all the time. So it's great that it's right in the RTP. For the day camp, it's strongly encouraged that staff and participants all, if they're eligible, go and get their COVID vaccine as soon as possible. That's something that comes right from the day camp document. That's the first piece. Secondly, there's this concept called cohorts. We haven't dealt with this in the past with being on the ice, but because we're a day camp, we need to be a day camp. It's not a regular training program. It really is something where we're going to bring in skaters and have them for a chunk of time and look after them. So the cohort piece, when you look at the RTP, there's going to be a chart, and the chart is going to give a bunch of examples of different age ranges. So all cohorts from the day camp document are set up in ages. So you'll see 4 to 6, you'll see 6 to 9, those types of things. So what we've done is we've taken those age groups and given you an idea of what that would look like compared to our programs. So if you were looking at a can skate program, what that might look like on your session. I'll give you an example. The example would be, for example, if you had a group of skaters and they were going to be in your can skate cohort, and you had one skater that was over the age of 9, your maximum group size would be 20. There would be a related coach to staff ratio to go along with that. But if you had another session that was your can skate cohort 2, we say, and you had just skaters that were age 6 to 9, nobody over the age of 9, you could have 30 in your cohort. So there are some difference, but it is very much based on age. So we'll really need to think about our programs that we put on the ice and think about grouping them by age as opposed to their levels.
I have a quick question, and that is, when we're talking about day camps, are we talking about day camps that are offered, let's say, through a city or a municipality, or are we talking about day camps that are offered through a club or skating school, or is it both? Or do we...
So it is both. So you can offer them through the city. We definitely have clubs that have done that in the past. So that would be a piece of that. The other side would be offering them in your club. Again, I say it again, and you'll hear me, probably Lisa, say it as well, but it needs to be a day camp. We can't try to fit our regular training session in to look like a day camp. It's bringing in your skaters for all the activities and stuff that surround that. So thirdly, sorry, did that answer the question?
I think so. Yeah. I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't restricted to just cities or just skating schools in our capacity. Listen, we have a great question already, and keep those questions coming, audience. This is from Ashley Cumming, a capacity limit for the outdoor training. Also, can you elaborate more on what a day camp would look like considering normal sports training is not permitted?
That's a phenomenal question. So
I
first
agree.
off, I can answer the outdoor one. So the capacity is 10 participants outdoor, plus your coaching staff on top of that. So that would be your restriction for that. When we say normal sports, skating is not yet available. So it really is a day camp. So all of your regulations that surround that sit in the day camp document.
Okay. Okay. This is another great question that I wouldn't have thought about from Mariessa Sherry Startek. I hope I said your name right. Anyway, can you confirm that the camp must take place during the day?
I can speak to that one, PJ.
All right.
That is one of the things that we discussed with our lawyer last night, and the advice that we have received is that it is not restricted to particular hours in the day. So
Okay.
if you look at what is written in the regulations, to the best of our understanding, so for instance, if your camp ran from 4 p.m. till 9 p.m., that would still be a day camp. As long as you run it, it has to be 5 days in a row, right? This is not a drop-in, 5 days in a row. But we also looked up for reference, there are city camps that are offering some of those later in the day things. So I assume that's what the question was related to, was would you be able to do that kind of time frame? And our advice for now is that would be okay.
Okay, another question. I'm not sure if it's for you or for Sharon. I remember coaching in the summertime, and I often had adult skaters who were coaching as part of the camp. Is there a maximum age for day camp participants?
Unfortunately, there is. And
Okay.
I know this is not great news for the adults. And listen, I'm sure they're out there saying right now, why is it safer for children than it is for us? And that all we can do is share the information with you.
Okay.
So what you will see in the day camp guidelines is that it doesn't give an age, but it says that they have to be a high school student.
Okay.
So, and again, that's another thing that we sort of tried to get legal advice on. That was another thing that we tried to get advice on. And they confirmed that, as long as the kids were still like in grade 12 this year, so it's not,
Okay.
as of September 1st, that it would be reasonable that anybody who has been, who's like currently as of today in high school would be able, as high as we can go with day camps.
Okay, we have a question from brand new Papa, Michael Carreno, along with Melissa Greer Parker has the same question. Mariessa does too. Tell me, if 5 days in a row, how long does the camp have to be?
Undefined, as is most of this stuff, right?
Okay.
I think, I think the best advice that we can give, and why this has been so difficult to sort through, is this, and all these questions that are coming in are this related to this idea of how exactly are we supposed to tell the difference between sport training and a day camp, right? So, I think the best advice that we can give is sort of like, give yourself a reality check, right? It's not supposed to be come in and go onto the ice for an hour, right? This is intended to be a chunk of time with, a bigger, a variety of, it's on the ice, it's off the ice, some more activities for the athletes. There's not a specific time. And I also think that something that's really important to mention, PJ, is this is not going to be just based on what we say, right?
Okay.
Like the municipalities are confused, the facilities are confused. Or I shouldn't say that. Maybe not confused, but also working through this interpretation. Yeah. So I also think that this is really going to be a case of, you are definitely going to have to discuss with your facility and, maybe with your municipality and maybe with your health unit, what are you offering and how do you propose that it's a day camp?
I have a great couple of questions from 3 different people who are asking the same thing. One is Lisa Horsberg-Schurer, wondering about half-day camps. Marie Johnson-McKenzie, wondering about a half-day camp, how many hours it should be. And then Siobhan Crawley, a maximum number of hours during the day for camp. So any insight into any of those questions?
So our understanding is half-day camps are absolutely legitimate. If you look up what the city camp, what other day camp organizations have already posted, including the city camps, they offer, in some cases, the cities are offering 3 windows during the day.
Yeah.
I see Siobhan's question. I'm sitting here in Mississauga too, Siobhan. We're probably right down the road from each other. I think the city of Mississauga is actually offering, I think I looked at their website yesterday, I think they're actually offering 3 different time windows.
Okay. Jocelyn Christie, another great question. Is on ice activity permitted as part of a day camp? On ice.
Yeah, do you want to take this one, Sharon?
Sure.
Here you go, Sharon. You're in the big window.
Yes, it is. So from the way we understand it, when we can offer our skating camps with on ice, you need to work within your cohort. So like I was talking about before, there's a chart that you'll find in the RTP that includes the age ranges. So you'll need to work, that cohort will need to remain together for the whole day. So they can offer on and off ice programming. You can do crafts, you can do arts, you can do all of the things on the side, have lunch together, but everything goes within. And you'll find more details about that in the day camp guidelines from the government.
Great question from Mariessa. She's got some great questions. Outdoor restriction become nil and void if it is a camp cohort?
Yes, those are 2 different things. So
Okay.
the outside training group, you'll find it in different places in the legislation, but the outdoor training group is a specific, I'm not sure of the wording, Lisa, but it's I believe it's a recreational outdoor activity class. I'm probably getting that wrong, but for that specific area, it does not have to abide by any of the day camp guidelines. It's on its own, and that's where that 10 would come from with the extra coaches on top.
Andy's wondering if those maximum sizes will also be permitted on the ice at any one time, those cohort.
So that is not mixing group, correct? You're talking
Okay.
about one cohort?
Yeah.
That's affirmative. That's affirmative.
Okay.
So the cohort sizes are the groups that are available on, off the ice together. They also, so the big thing is they need to stick together. So whether you're on the ice or off the ice. So yes.
Great question from Mark Hadley. Tentative summer ice booked, approximately 5 weeks, 3 days for a limited time. Can we call this a camp? 3 days.
Lisa, do you want to answer this?
Yeah. This won't be your favorite answer, Mark, but no. The day camp guidelines are very clear. It needs to be 5 days. And, and we have to remember, by the time the kids are out of school, I mean, the clock is on for when sport training will be allowed. And, hope springs eternal, and my fingers are crossed that, that will become more clear at that time. But during this time, if it's for it to be truly a camp, the camp guidelines are very clear. It has to be 5 days in a row.
Okay, so you're not the most popular person right now on Mark's list, but that's okay. We can go with it. Another great question this is from, sorry, just lost it, Melissa Sargent. Do the coaches have to stay, this is maybe a Sharon question, have to stay with the same cohort the entire day, or could we have some stay on the ice and others for off-ice activities?
Yes. So this is one of the highlights that I didn't actually get to. We got to our questions. So for coaches, that's one of the highlights. Your coach and staff members need to stay with their cohort for the duration of the program. So your week program, if you have 3 groups, for example, group A, B, and C, if I am the coach, one of the coaches with the cohort for group A, I would be with group A, and I wouldn't be able to visit group B and C.
Great question from Winning Technique Summer Camp. They only have skaters joining them at the rink with no other activities. They want to know if they cannot have that option anymore. In other words, does it have to be an all-encompassing program to be known as a day camp, not just ice time?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
So if I was just going to the rink without off-ice classes, without any other kind of programming, simply ice time, does that mean that Winning Technique Summer Camp can't really call it a day camp under these guidelines or this definition for the moment?
I'm not sure I can answer that question.
Okay.
I would say, honestly, I would say that's correct, PJ. Like this is not, we have to be very careful that this is, and like it or not, we're here to share the information, right? But so sport training camps are what are not allowed yet. I think the thing that's very difficult is, you remember people are writing these, you have to remember people are writing these regulations who they don't necessarily understand how difficult this is going to be for people like us to parse the difference, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But, I think the biggest thing, as I said, is kind of that gut check, right? Like sport training is not allowed, right? If it's just sport training. This is for now, for the next 6 weeks, we think, day camps.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Okay. So another great question, this one from Marie Johnson McKenzie. Children are now in school until late June. Can they offer weekend camps?
No.
Still has to be 5 days, right?
Yeah, absolutely not. Yeah.
So this question really intrigued me, from Melissa Greer Parker, and you girls will fight it out to see who's going to answer it. But a provincial plan prevented indoor recreation for sports before phase 3, which is like the end of July 26th or something like that, if all goes according to plan. So day camps are not considered in conflict with the provincial reopening, or are they? Or what are the dates we're talking about?
This is why it's been so difficult for us to pull this information together.
Yes.
And this is why we, at all times continue to beg for more clarification, from the government, and why it's so difficult for, a bunch of people like us who are really trying to do the right and safe thing. So what is allowed in stage 1 is day camps, but not sport training. And the reason that we're talking to you guys about day camps is we have a long history of lots of our programs that really do run true day camps for kids in the summer. So that's so that's what we're talking about. And I appreciate that people would like to get going with doing a little bit more what they want with regards to indoor sport training. But, as the question mentions, for now, that's not allowed until stage 3, which, until and unless they change the date, is July 23rd.
It's super interesting. I am on top of this, and yet every time I talk about it, I feel like I don't understand anything about it. So if anybody else out there is confused, don't feel badly, because that's kind of where we're all at. I've got a question about synchro, and it's coming from Lisa Patro. Can a synchro team plan 1 week, 1 hour on, 1 hour off ice, 1 hour on? It is training, but does it meet the requirements of camp? I'm going to guess no, but I want to hear the official answer.
Yeah, this is, as I said, this is where it's very complicated. And this is where I would also say, we're here sharing the information from the regulations as best we understand them. I think it's going to be really important for programs to talk to their facility, right? And make a presentation of what their plan is. The information that Sharon is sharing is the stuff that, that we know for sure, and that is clear, right? We know. And I think what's going to be really different for people are some of these concepts that Sharon talked about, like the cohorts, like the 5 days in a row. But there isn't there's no information in the regulations that clearly defines, if you have these activities included, it's a camp. And if you have these activities included, it's sport training, right? That doesn't exist. So as I said, it's a little bit of gut check, right? Like, think it through. We are very clearly not trying to paint up sport training and say, go ahead. It needs to be a day camp. Mm-hmm. But we are also saying, but I really think it's going to be a lot about talking to your facility and finding out what's allowed in your municipality for these next few weeks.
So I'm going to come back to Sharon for just a second. Sharon, I was just going to ask you if you could offer just sort of some general recommendations and general suggestions, some places where all of this amazing audience can start if they're considering either having a day camp or skating at a day camp. Where do they start?
So I think the big piece, which is what I was going to follow up with there with Lisa, is really diving into the day camp guidelines document, because there is a ton of information in there. Like we said, we haven't taken that all out and put it in our RTP, so you have to work with the documents hand in hand. And they have many specific guidelines that you would need to follow about snacks and what type of protective gear you would need to wear, and right, how you sign in, what type of records you keep, and that kind of thing. So I think that would be your very first step, would be to dive into that and to figure out if you're willing to go there, because there's a lot of things that you would need to do. I think that there's if I can touch just briefly on programs, is that okay, PJ?
Yes, absolutely. Please
so I
do.
missed it in the highlight with our ITP. It's important to note that from our end, all programs are available for this. Like, you can use what you need to do for your programming. So Can Skate, Can Power, synchro, singles, etc. Having said that, when we're thinking about the little beans, there will definitely be questions about your little pre-can kind of gals and guys. The big thing with them is that we need them to be able to maneuver on their own. So stand up on their own and maneuver on their own to be on the ice by themselves. So that would be if they attended on their own. If you can get support from a responsible person within their house that can come on the ice with them, they could certainly take part in the camp as well with the assistance of that person.
They have to be in skates, though. I had so many
have to be in skates.
Yeah, who would try and get on the ice in shoes and say, no, thank you, no broken hips here.
Yes, so. And just one more point with that, PJ, the numbers you'll see when we go back and look at your program requirements, when you start to get into that side of it, always remember that the cohort numbers supersede any of our program numbers. So the information that's in the day camp document supersedes our program numbers.
So tell me, give me an example of where those two might be in conflict.
There's quite a bit, to be quite honest. For example, I can use the Can Skate group that had one 9-year-old in it. We talked about how they could have a maximum of 20 on the ice. So our previous RTP would have said that there would be a maximum of 36 on the ice. Okay. So they would need to be 20 for that group.
Okay, so people have to pay very close attention to sort of the guidelines. You can see scrolling on the bottom of the screen that we are always just a phone call or an email away, but really email's better because none of us are in the office yet. And that is, there's lots of information to be had on our website and also by email. So there are just so many interesting questions that are coming through. I'm going to try and get to a couple more before we sort of start to wrap things up. One of them is this question from Jackie Williams. Is it, if there's outdoor fitness training allowed, it's not even a day camp question, it's just a general question, so it's probably a Lisa question. Can coaches get together with a group of 10 skaters and train outside?
Yes.
Absolutely. Please do.
Yeah, please do. And, and thinking back to that question of could you bring kids together, like if it was just on a weekend until we get out of school, go outside. Right? Yep. We've all heard the outdoor better than indoor. Like if you want to do something where you are less restricted for days and activities and, meet outside with a group of skaters. Please do, as Sharon said. Yeah.
Great question from Mark Haley, experienced coach. So the guardians who are on the ice in their skates, and you should skate, by the way, don't just get on the ice as your first time to help the 3-year-old because that's not helpful. But do they need to be members of Skate Canada in order to get on the ice?
Yes, always.
Okay.
Always. Yes.
How do they do that in the summertime?
So it would go the same way through your club. So the Skate Canada club would register through their Skate Canada online access.
Okay. We are very lucky in Canada to have some very talented athletes potentially going to the World Games. So, Lisa, maybe you can talk a little bit about Special Olympic athletes if you have any information.
Yeah, this is, I really understand the question, Bonnie, and getting the Special Olympic athletes on the ice. Unfortunately, right now, that the way the exemption is written, they are not included. They're not. And I appreciate that is very difficult. And, we're so excited to have these amazing Ontario athletes that have been named to that team. But for now, that exemption does not extend to them. It's very explicit in what's the law.
I'm going to ask you a question that actually Jennifer is mirroring for me. Jennifer Hart, is there any chatter of moving skating up from stage 3 to stage 2? I want to say no. The government is making the rules the way that they are. Some seem arbitrary, some don't, but it's not likely to change. What do you think about my prediction?
Yeah, we aren't hearing anything about that. We continue to, and we understand the frustration that we're going to have over the next few weeks, right? With our, we're an individual store, big venues, sterling track records. We continue to push about all of that stuff, but I think the reality is that we'll be looking at waiting.
This is a great question, I think, for Sharon. Michael Carino wants to know, can we do Skate Canada testing during the camp sessions on ice? Any ideas?
No, Michael's not going to like me. So this will be considered part of your training session. This is a really skating training. So assessment days will not be available for day camps. So again, what Lisa had mentioned, really and truly, ideally, we're not going to be far along before we get them back on the ice. So we can try to get those set up when people are ready to put sport back on the ice.
Yeah.
This is a great question from Ice Princess KCL. So does this only pertain to phases 1 and 2, and that once we get to stage 3, indoor sports are available, everything changes? Do you know? Any ideas?
We do know that. Well, I shouldn't say, I would not say these days it's very tough to say we know anything for sure, isn't it?
Well, we know it for a couple of minutes, maybe.
Yeah, that is certainly so we have this framework to reopening that says indoor sports will be allowed in stage 3, but what the actual regulations for that will be are completely unknown. Like, as everybody knows, I mentioned, we just, we're in stage 1 today, and we just received those regulations 2 days ago. So we don't know the details of that yet. And sorry, PJ, can I loop back a little bit? I did want to mention, I said that special O athletes were not allowed under the Olympic exemption, but of course, special O athletes are allowed to participate in day camps. So I appreciate that's not, those kids who are training for the World Games to just go do their skating training. If it's skating training, they are not allowed under the Olympic exemption, but special O athletes are able to participate. A special O athlete would be able to participate in a day camp.
Okay, so that's at least something. Cindy Leah has a question, and that is, even though the camp is being offered for 5 days, maybe it's a Sharon question. Do the skaters need to attend all those 5 days? Do they need to be registered for that?
That's a phenomenal question. I would assume yes. I'm not sure I know the answer. Lisa?
Yes, they have to be registered for all 5 days. I mean, I think we all know, like some kid, whatever, something happens, but yes, they have to be registered for all 5 days. You can't run something for 5 days and then offer some kids to come Tuesday, Thursday, and some kids to come Monday, Wednesday. Like, it has to be set up for 5 days. The cohort has to stick together. And and I think, to Sharon's point, some of that stuff, I appreciate people are asking questions not having read the documents yet. So, I think that's why we're also, and, we'll be posting right after this, these documents that we're referring to, right? So we'll be posting the camp guidelines. We will be posting Skate Ontario's sort of annotated return to play protocols as they relate to day camps. So if people are running day camps that skating is a part of, they'll be able to look at those documents.
Are masks mandatory? That's another good question. Sharon, do you know?
So with this one, the masks are mandatory in certain conditions, right? In certain places. So again, I bring you back to your day camp guidelines, but when you're not in sport, so when you're in areas within the building inside, masks are required for staff and participants. There's actually places where more PPE is required. So there are some places that you should definitely need to look into.
This has been the fastest half hour. It's already at 34 minutes. Okay, ladies, I want to know, how are you feeling about this? How are you feeling about us going into a summer that will include day camps potentially? Sharon, I'm going to go with you first.
Honestly, when I first saw this, I was like, it's a gift. We have a chance to get on the ice, so I'm excited about that. I think that there's lots of clubs that can offer something like this, so I think that getting any skaters on the ice is a good thing. So I feel good.
Terrific. One more question that is really important. Does insurance cover all on and off ice activities of a day camp, or do they need separate camp insurance? Do we know?
I would confirm with Skate Canada, but from my knowledge, yes, it is all included.
Lisa, this one's for you. Any chance that the Olympic rule will be renegotiated for junior and senior synchro teams so they can get back training?
Still working on it. We just had a call last week. There's a new here's a sexy, interesting piece of information. There is a new director of policy in the ministry who we actually had a live conversation with, and we talked again about this Olympic definition and about how it was leaving out incredibly important Canadian athletes, just based on I'm in this discipline versus I'm in this discipline. So, and the other thing that's rapidly going to become problematic for them is what happens for the summer sports. Like, they have teams leaving for Tokyo. So are they going to have people who, until a few, are they going to have to tell everybody, is every summer sport going to have to stop all training for July because the Olympics are on? Or there are a million ways that the definition is problematic.
Yeah.
We did have a live conversation, as I said, with this director in the ministry, and he has allowed us to submit our suggestion for an updated exemption language. Whether we will get anywhere with that, I can tell you we haven't stopped trying, and we'll keep trying.
Well, what's so interesting, and I'm going to let legendary coach David Islam know that we're working on stuff for high performance athletes as well. So stay tuned to this space, and there's always people to sort of email if you have questions. Anything you want to say about the high performance folks?
Yes. Sharon, did you guys finalize you didn't. So what we are looking at is based on the cohort sizes for day camps. We are reviewing the group sizes. So we'll publish that information for you, but based on the day camp information, we're re-looking at that. So that would be something that would change on our end.
Before I get your final thoughts, Lisa, I am going to give you my favorite comment today from Andy Nesbitt. This is all fantastic news. You know what? It sure feels like progress, Andy. It feels like we're getting somewhere. We're at the clubhouse turn. So that said, Lisa Alexander, where are we headed from here? Any sort of final thoughts that you can offer?
Yeah, I want to say first that I want to really thank the people who have reached out offering to help. And, I know there are people out there who we've kind of held off because we were waiting to hear something, right? So, I really want to, take this chance to thank everybody for remaining so engaged and so committed to doing what we can and get the kids back safely. I do also want to remind people, and we will put this in the communication, not to be a bit of a downer, but the government makes announcements about interpretation all the time. And because this stuff has been a little bit confusing, we do need to be aware that the government continues to make clarification announcements. So it will be important to stay up to date on that for everybody and for us. We'll continue to watch that too and let you know. But just to be aware, right? Like, they are always able to do that at any time. But I will say in general, I couldn't be happier that we're actually talking about reopening. I know that this is still stressful and frustrating, and we've got a couple of, a number of weeks left where we have our frustrations, and people would like to be back who aren't able, and people who would like to be able to run programs in a way that they're not able. But I'm so excited to be here actually talking about reopening and moving very soon towards that.
And if people have any questions, let's talk about the website. skateontario.org is where you can find our most up-to-date information. And if you have any questions or you need help with something, please make sure to email us at clubsupportservices@skateontario.org. Whew. It's been quite a moment. Ladies, I want to really thank you for joining me. You have been fantastic. I want to remind everybody, okay, this is very important stuff, people. We have a draw tomorrow at noon, And that is for who's going to win our Nissan Kicks. That's going to be noon on Facebook Live and on YouTube. You're going to want to join us. We're drawing for all of the prizes in our promotional contest. That happens tomorrow at noon. And then we also have an amazing event coming up on June 30th featuring Olympian and world bronze medalist Piper Gillis. We're going to be talking with our champion partner Merit Travel, and we're going to be focusing on Ottawa. Why Ottawa, you say? Well, because we're all headed to Ottawa in January to crown new Canadian champions. Fingers crossed, by the way, on the heading to Ottawa, but that's what I'm thinking. And that's also possibly where some of the Olympic team is going to be named. So that's June 30th, 7 p.m. on Facebook Live and on YouTube. And then, of course, tomorrow at noon, we'll see you then. Thank you so much for joining us. Bye for now.